Good afternoon. So just to go over the objectives for today, we're going to talk about the reference model as a tool in helping you organize your audit. I don't want to in any way say that you have to use the reference model when you're developing your TMF, but as an auditor, I find it invaluable. It helps you really be organized in your approach and helps you identify GCP noncompliance. We'll talk about strategies for conducting this audit and how you can use the capabilities of eTMF to perform audits. And then lastly, we'll talk about strategies for auditing the TMF that really focus on what I think are quality artifacts and GCP compliance. So just to introduce myself, Melinda, have you participated in one of my sessions in the past at all?
No, I have not.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I'll take a minute then just to introduce myself. So my name is Anna Dorzinski. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. Actually, it's close to 30 now. I did spend the first 15 years in large pharma, in clin pharm and clinical operations. Back in the days when we had phase 1 sites that wrote their protocols, monitored their studies, and wrote their reports. So in one job, I was able to function as both the site and the sponsor and the monitors. Not exactly the best way to do studies today, but definitely a great environment to learn a lot about clinical research. 14 years ago, we saw the light and we decided we weren't going to have sites anymore. And so I ended up leaving GSK and going out on my own and just really doing some compliance work and have spent the last really 14 years working with sites and sponsors in implementing GCP compliance systems, and the last several years in really predominantly the TMF world. I still do some auditing and definitely inspection preparation, but for the most part, it's working in the TMF world. Also, just to note, I have been involved in the reference model, so I guess it's a little bit of a disclosure. I chaired the Zone 4 revisions of the reference model and have worked on several of the zone committees as well as other standing committees. Most recently, we've been working on establishing standard sub-artifacts. And I do have a fair amount of experience with Part 11 because it's probably part of everything we do. So if you've ever attended any of my sessions, you've seen this slide. It's very common. It's my story about the TMF telling a story. Your TMF is really a standalone set of documentation that has to tell the story of what happened with your study, right? Every study is unique and it has its own study, and therefore every TMF is unique and has to be able to tell its story. The perfect inspection, there's no verbal communication with the inspector. The inspector simply goes through the TMF, gets the answers to their question, and leaves. I've seen it happen. It's pretty amazing. The TMF was really, really in good shape, and everything they needed to know came from the TMF, and so there were very, very, very few questions, and certainly no interviews. So there might be a question as well, do you have this, or what about that? But definitely not lots of interviews where you were trying to explain what happened because the documentation couldn't explain it. It has to be an output from all functional areas. It can't just be a clinical output. It really is data management, biostats, clinical materials and supplies, regulatory, all these groups, medical writing, all these groups are coming together to have a collective output. If you have the responsibility sitting strictly with clinical, it's going to be very challenging to have a complete TMF. First of all, clinical can't tell the complete story of data management, biostats, CMC, regulatory, unless they're actually participating in it. So from that perspective, it's almost impossible to be able to make sure you have a complete file. But it really does need to be an output. So what we're going to talk about today in terms of compliance or auditing is really, an audit is about process. It's about how you got to where you are. QC is making sure you have all the data, you have all the information, but audit is about the process, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It definitely, we know that our regulatory requirements are that we have to have this complete list of content, all of our content that supports our story. We have to have a process that really includes how you manage TMF during the study, before the study even starts, and then of course at the end. And then, anytime anybody that hears me speak on TMF will hear me talk about inspection readiness at all times. I guess I'm assuming, so have both companies, Melinda, have you been through an FDA or EMA inspection? I'm just going to unleash you here. Have you guys had an inspection yet, EMA, NHRA, FDA, anything like that, based with your TMF? You have not, okay. And Tina, I think we talked earlier, you guys really haven't had a lot of experience with that. The focus right now is definitely around inspection readiness, because we know that as soon as you're active in MHRA EMA regions, there's a good chance you're going to get inspected because they are doing their inspections based on being active in their regions. FDA generally is inspecting based on filings. However, we have had a recent New England company inspected without a having never had, say that quickly 3 times, having never had a filing. So they've never had a filing, an NDA filing, but yet they were inspected, and it was a TMF inspection. And the FDA told them there was no for cause, it was just a general inspection.